Okay, good afternoon. Just really quickly, these are the objectives that I would like to accomplish in this lesson. I usually will hand these out as a handout to the kids. I'd like them to draw, um, to write down notes, and so I would give them a handout. But in the interest of time, I'm just going to go ahead and skip these and not explain them. One thing that I think is very important and crucial in economics is to see the big picture. So in this instance, I actually drew or created a mind map. Sometimes I'll have the students do it themselves, but because economics, you do need to know um, the big picture. You need to know the connections, and so this is oligopolies at the top, and then the two types of oligopolies that we're going to talk about: collusive, non-collusive, and then it's going to break down collusive into formal, non-formal, and then give examples as well. So we're going to start here on the left to begin with. Collusive oligopolies. Just remember that collusion in oligopolies, it refers to an agreement between firms, and they're going to limit competition. It's small firms, and they want to pretty much become a monopoly. Um, they want to limit competition through barriers. They want to increase monopoly's power, and of course, they want to increase those profits. Money, money, money. Um, Now, it's important to remember that collusion is illegal in most countries. There are some few instances where there's not. We'll give some examples, but it is considered illegal in most countries. Um, there's two types of collusive oligopolies that we'll talk about. We'll talk about formal, also sometimes called open collusion, and that usually takes the form of a cartel. And then there's informal or tacit collusion, and the best example of that is price leadership. Now, formal or sometimes called open collusion is because it is out in the open. Everyone knows, even though most countries considered it illegal, everyone still knows that these people act this way, that they've made these agreements. Um, and it's usually called a cartel. Um, a cartel is a formal agreement between firms in a particular industry, and they're going to take actions to um, increase their profits, or by either fixing the price or fixing the output by driving that price up. Now, these members of a cartel, remember it's an oligopoly, so there's going to be a few firms that have dominant position in an industry. They're going to come together and they're going to act like monopoly. And they are looking for price maximization. And as we've learned before, as the students have learned, that rule is, and it's very crucial, it's MC equals MR. You always need to remember that. Marginal revenue equals marginal cost. Now we're going to go over this graph. So remember, it's a few firms that are going to act like a monopoly. And so, as we talked before, they are going to be profit maximizers. And that rule is MC equals MR. So let's see, I'll give you a little bit of time, and I want you to find out where MC meets MR. It's right where that yellow dot is, okay? So, as you've learned before, probably drawing these graphs, is that you're going to take the vertical line, hit the demand or price curve, then you're going to go to the left. That will be the price. That will be the price. Now, how do you find out where the profit is? You need to find where AR equals ATC or AC. You draw that to the left. That box right here will be the profits. And because this is acting as a monopoly, these will be super normal profits or abnormal profits, depending on if you're doing IB, AP, or A level. Now, those profits, remember, it's not just one firm, it's a few firms, and so they're going to need to split the profits. And usually how they do it is they just say, okay, if you own this much percent of the market share, we'll give you this percentage of the profits. And a great example that we can go over is OPEC. OPEC is probably the most famous or infamous cartel out there, and they control oil. It's 13 countries all over the world, and they will either price fix the oil or they will limit the quantity of oil. As you can see here, this represents oil produced in the whole world. This blue part is OPEC. This gray part is non-OPEC, the rest of the world. Now we're going to take this blue part over here and we're going to break it down per country that's in it. As you can see, Venezuela has a huge chunk, and also Saudi Arabia has a huge chunk as well. Indonesia looks like as well. And then the smallest looks like it's Gabon down here. Now in terms of that profit sharing, what would happen if they did it by percentage of market share? Then Venezuela would get because they have 24.8% of market share, they would also get 24.8% of the profit. And in contrast, Gabon would only get 0.2% of the profit share. Now, what is the ideal environment for a cartel to be successful? Number one, they need to be a limited number of firms. And those firm members need to be all members of the cartel. They all need to make that agreement that we're going to price fix or we're going to limit the quantity produced. Other things that are helpful are they have similar cost structures. Okay, remember that profits are costs minus revenue, and so if some firms have higher costs, maybe they won't get as much profit. Other things is they want high barriers of entry. You don't want other people coming in to take advantage of your market shares. Other thing is they all need to obey the rules. Remember, it only takes one person. If they were to lower their price, it only takes one person to destroy that price fixing. And so everyone needs to obey the rules. It needs to have a stable market, and it's also good if the firms produce similar identical products. In the instance of OPEC, they all sell oil or petrol. Now, the second type we're going to talk about is informal or tacit collusion. We learned that formal collusion is illegal. Actually, collusion is illegal because it's an open agreement, a formal agreement. A lot of people will companies will get around this by being what's called tacit collusion. Means that they're going to cooperate just implicitly, or they kind of, they wink, okay, we're going to agree to this, but we're not going to sign any papers. We're not going to let everyone know this. And so we can maybe get away with this, and it could be it won't be illegal. Maybe we'll try and make it so it's sort of legal, but we're doing this to get around the laws. Their objectives are the same thing as a formal. They want to fix the price, limit competition, and increase profits. They want to do the exact thing that cartels do, but they can't make that formal agreement because it's considered illegal. The best examples of this are price leaderships. So number one is called dominant firm model. What they'll do is they'll choose who has the most market shares in that industry, and they will let them decide the price, and then everyone else is just kind of implicitly, there's very tacit, they just follow whatever they set. Other things as well, you could maybe say Apple is one of those. Apple kind of makes the price, and then everybody else just kind of follows them. Barometric price leadership. This one, it's kind of as a barometer. What they'll do is they'll find out which firm is historically the most accurate, who can the best at judging market conditions, and they will follow them. They'll follow the one that has the most knowledge, that's the most consistent with that knowledge. And the last one is called parallel pricing, where everyone's just going to raise their prices simultaneously, or they'll drop their prices simultaneously as well. Now that we've talked about collusion, the left side, okay, at this point I would probably be doing a review with them, depending, I don't know if this is IB I'm teaching or if it's A-level or AP, maybe multiple choice questions if it's A-level or AP, but with IB I know that everything is written, so maybe we'll do some written question as well. There needs to be some type of a formative assessment right here done, but in the interest of time, I skipped over that. We are now going to talk about oligopolies, the non-collusive part in kink demand curve. So non-collusive oligopolies, they'll set their price and output independently, but they need to be aware of what other firms are doing. Firms will make their decisions on what other people may be doing. They're not going to get together with them. They're not going to have anything that's implicit, but they're going to look and see what everybody else is doing, and they kind of judge. If they're going to do this, then I'm going to do this. So with non-collusive oligopolies, they have to use strategy to compete with other firms. And it's something called game theory. This is where there's a branch of economics called behavioral economics. And this kind of deals with that as well. So we're kind of getting into that area. The best way to describe kind of what goes on with non-collusive oligopolies is they draw what's called a kink demand curve. Now, this is very simple. It looks very complicated in the paper you gave me, but it's actually quite a very simple diagram to draw. The kink demand curve analysis is actually two demand curves, and that's the important thing to do. And what it's going to tell us is if there's a rise in price, what would happen, and if there is a lowering of price, what would happen. Okay, so this is what's going to happen, because what's going to happen is if you raise the price, this elastic curve will be what the price hits. It can't hit this one, it first hits this one, okay? Now, we've learned about what elasticity does. If a firm in an oligopoly, a non-collusive oligopoly, if they raise their prices, none of the other firms will raise their price. If you raise your price and no one else raises their price and it is elastic, that means people will not buy your product and there will be a decrease in quantity. Does that make sense? Okay? There will be a loss of sales and there will be a fall in total revenue. Okay? If they lower their prices, if someone decides to lower their price in an oligopoly, it will be inelastic. Inelastic means that if they lower their price, there won't be a huge percentage change in quantity demanded. There'll be little benefit to do that. In fact, if they lower their price, other firms will also have to lower their price as well. And that gets into a little bit what's called game theory. And I'm not sure if they would have learned this before or after. I would like to teach it to them before, or immediately after this, but we're going by the papers that you sent me. So as you can see, the kink demand curve is actually this. It's the purple. We're going to ignore these red ones. And so this is your kink demand. Once again, people in non-collusive oligopolies will usually tend to stay at one price. They will stay at this price. Why? Because if they higher their price, that means that nobody will buy their products because it's elastic. If they lower their price this way, it won't be a benefit to them, and in fact, it might cause what's called a price war, where people will keep lowering their prices. Now, if this is just a review.